Hey everybody, this is Ibis Fernandez with ToonTitan.com. Today I'm starting a new series on this channel, basically called Crazy Talking. Basically, this is going to be an editorial series where I'm going to be giving out my opinion. Basically, an opinion is just something that, it's personal. It's what I feel on a certain topic, and maybe share some insights and things of that nature. So it's not necessarily a tutorial or anything that can be treated as an absolute fact. You ultimately draw your own conclusions. One of the first things I wanted to talk about in this series, which is what we're making this broadcast today about, is making a living with Crazy Talk Animator. This is a question that's been posed since forever, really. People have been posting this on the forums, and they've been asking me over the years, how do you make a living with Crazy Talk Animator? And recently there was another post on that on the Crazy Talk Animators users group on Facebook, and I figured it would be a great time to go ahead and get things started with a video talking about that particular subject. So let's talk about it. For those of you joining me live, feel free to post your questions. I don't expect much of that going on today, but feel free to post a lot your questions. It'll give us a little bit more to work with in terms of the interactions that take place. Let's see if we can bring in that way I'm aware of the chats that are going on, if anything. Otherwise, just kind of stick around, and you'll be able to watch this. Hey, Adi, how's it going, man? Thank you for joining in. Um, so thank you for joining us, guys, and let's get started. So this is a really important question, and it's something that I felt that I needed to address in a video, because I think a lot of people have the wrong impression about what Crazy Talk is, what Crazy Talk Animator makes you. Having the software alone is not generally enough to give you that ability to automatically start making a living with this software. The main thing you have to understand is that Crazy Talk Animator is developed for the general population, the general audience. Okay, Reallusion, the company that developed Crazy Talk Animator and iClone, they're developing tools for the general audience, the general consumption. These are your neighbors. These are the teacher that's going to create instructional videos for their students, for the hobbyist who's going to be able to put together their thoughts and create their own short films, their own things with it. And let me see if I can turn off this overlay here, because it's kind of bugging me. Let's see here. All right, so I've turned off that overlay. And so, I mean, when you're talking about Crazy Talk Animator alone, I mean, you got to think about it as a tool that is extremely advanced, but at the same time, it's put those advanced tools in the hands of the general public. And in general, your competition is not necessarily other professionals. Your competition, if you're just starting out with this, is the general public, people who have access to this tool. It could be the 13-year-old kid, that lives next door to you. It's the teacher, the hobbyist, anybody who wants to be able to produce things. They have the tools to be able to create highly advanced animated content very easily by simply dragging and dropping things. Okay, so if you got your hands on this piece of software and you started animating and you've gotten really good at it, you can drag and drop motions. You can modify characters by switching body parts around, by changing colors, changing their proportions, and making them move and talk and perform things. You're headed the right way. You are headed the right way, but it's not normally enough. So in general, this piece of software is, I describe it as being the iPhone of the animation industry. As technology progresses, as technology becomes more advanced, these tools become more accessible to people, and they're cheaper, and it allows you to produce things a lot faster. Same thing with like an iPhone. You have this super advanced computer that fits in your pocket. You can take great quality pictures that you couldn't take 5 years ago. You can make 4K quality films with it. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to go and get a job at Universal Studios or Warner Brothers as a director of photography. I think I actually posted that. Excuse me. Excuse me. So it doesn't mean you're gonna. I'm automatically gonna go to Warner Brothers and expect to get a job filming movies because you have this highly advanced tool on your hands and you know how to use it well. Getting a job in the industry really involves you actually knowing what you're doing, having a highly advanced skill set with different disciplines, across multiple disciplines. In general, it's not about CTA. It's not about Crazy Talk Animator. It's about you as an animator, as a graphic designer, as a developer. And of course, it also has to do with your business sense, how much of a go-getter you are. I do see a lot of work being produced for television by people who all they're doing is dragging and dropping prefabricated content and stuff. It works, but our company's hiring specifically CTA animators. No, they're not. There's no company out there that is specifically hiring that I know of Crazy Talk animators. It's such an accessible tool that anybody can use it. So when these professional companies out there that are producing professional content are hiring people, they're hiring you because you're an animator, not because you're working with Crazy Talk Animator. There was a recent project that I was involved with called Batman Missions. You can find it on the DC Kids channel on YouTube, as well as the Mattel Action channel on YouTube, 12-part series. The primary tool that we used was, in fact, Crazy Talk Animator. The entire 12-episode series, we were able to produce it in about 6 weeks, maybe 7, give or take a few days. And it was a relatively low budget production, high quality. It's great, but ultimately it wasn't just Crazy Talk Animator. There was a lot of After Effects involved in the post processing and stuff, but primarily it was Crazy Talk Animator. And yeah, they hired a couple of guys, including myself, that knew how to work with Crazy Talk Animator. But for the most part, everybody else on that team, they were just people who were animators. They knew how to work with other tools like After Effects, Photoshop, Flash, Maya, and they knew the aspects of the animation process itself, how to create movement, timing, things of that nature. So when it comes to that type of aspect, you got to think about Crazy Talk Animator being a really easy to use piece of software, accessible to practically anybody off the street. Okay, your neighbors, your teacher, your students, anybody can use this piece of software to create high quality animation really fast. So how does this software translate to a professional environment? Basically, anybody who is already accustomed to doing animation work, because of the nature of this specific software, it's not going to take them that long to learn the software. Most professional companies already have their staff in place. All they need to do is buy the software, give it to their staff. They're going to be able to use it. So why would they be hiring out? It's very, very rare that they do this unless they don't have that particular department set up yet and they want to start from scratch. It's very rare. And of course, because of the high availability of the software, the low price associated with it, and the accessibility, the ease of the learning curve, anybody can pretty much start animating within a day of just playing around with this piece of software. So yeah, these companies are pretty much just giving it to their staff. Their staff picks it up right away, and they start animating. So I'm going to take a look at some of the comments from the from the Crazy Talk Animators users group that I was looking at earlier, and just kind of go through some of these points. Dirk, for example, he responded, CTA is just a tool. If you're good at animating and bringing stuff to life by movement and with passion, then you can even do that on a post-it. Yeah, you can take post-it notes. Okay, it doesn't really matter the software, you know, it doesn't matter what it is. You can animate with beans, you can animate with clay, you can animate with little sticks and do you know, stop motion animation. It's about the process and your ability to be able to produce stuff. So it doesn't matter what the software is, it's just a tool. And he's perfectly correct on that. He's 100% correct. David, he responded, it's not yet an industry standard tool. But it's more than capable tool for producing high quality and quality animation. Probably the easiest entry point is to start a business creating short animated promotional explainer videos for clients who are just interested in the final result rather than how you got it made. That is a really good, valid point. And that's a lot of what I see. I mean, a lot of the people who I am seeing that are directly making money from work produced with Crazy Talk Animator are people who are making these type of explainer videos, these marketing videos, and in general, it's one thing that makes these videos stand apart. It's the content, okay? Most of the people who are doing this, they're using the default generic Reallusion characters. So it's also very hard to go to a client and say, hey, you know, I'm going to produce this thing for you. Somebody who already know how the industry works and everything, they're going to want to copyright these characters. They're going to want to make any product that they put out there be as original as possible. They don't want to be able to see their characters in somebody else's commercials. And this is kind of the position that you're in, you know. If you're going to be doing everything all original, then yeah, you stand a chance to make even more money from it. But then again, the industry is not that big and developed yet. As a whole, Crazy Talk Animator is not taken very seriously by the animation industry because of the way it is. You know, Reallusion created this tool for the general audience, for hobbyists, for the amateur animators, for the average Joe who wants to be able to produce stuff. It's a highly advanced tool. When they released Crazy Talk Animator 2, they put out the G2 animation system. That was a game changer, and I think if they would have focused a lot more on that, they could have easily broken into that professional side where they are taken more serious by the animation industry, the professional side of it. However, you got to think about this. Reallusion is not putting out a product for professionals. They don't make their money from the sale of the software itself. I mean, that's not the majority of their money is being made from the sale of content. Okay, so they're gonna put out this very attainable piece of software. It's cheap, it's highly advanced, anybody can make stuff with it, animation with it, but they make the majority of their money through the sales of the content, you know, content packs, characters, props, scenes that you can just drag and drop, move, manipulate like puppets, add motion capture, you know, have the automatic lip sync and stuff. So you can create high quality content without having to necessarily be an animator. That's a big plus. But at the same time, because of that, companies expect more. They don't just want a Crazy Talk animator. They can train anybody from their staff to do this kind of work. Let's see here. Odd question. Are there businesses that specifically require knowledge of CTA or even the more advanced iClone and mocap software? Yeah, there's businesses out there, but there's so few of them that it's very, very improbable that you're gonna find it before somebody else does. It's very rare. More likely you are going to find you're going to find people who who are other people like yourself who are producing short films, and they do want their original characters featured in there. They don't want to see the characters in their production somewhere else, so they might hire you to develop those characters, to create them, to rig them up for them. But ultimately, the software is so easy to use that you just give them that character, they animate it themselves, and they don't need you after that, you know? So the more sought after skill would be the Flash skill, you know, the ability to create those characters in Flash or even in Photoshop if you're going to be doing G3 characters. So that's a more reasonable goal, I guess you would call it. If you're looking for strictly something based on the software operation side. Can you make a living with CTA? Absolutely. And because of the nature of the business model that Reallusion has established, they have in fact created a small industry for you that's just ready for you. They have put out their marketplace. And in this marketplace basically allows you to create content that is sold to other animators, you know, to other people who are looking to produce content. So you can create original characters, you can create props, you can create scenes, you can create prefabricated motion packs that people could just drag and drop into their products and put things out there and be creative, you know. So you can make a pretty good living doing that. They already have the marketplace available for you so that you can do that. There's a lot of stuff involved in that, you know, also that you have to keep in mind. I've seen a lot of arguments take place at the Reallusion forums, complaints about the commissions that take place. You know, I used to do syndicated cartoons and things of that nature. And with cartoons that are for print, in general, they don't pay that much, you know, per newspaper. They're gonna, even if you get yourself a really nice sweet deal with one or two newspapers where you charge them maybe $20, $25, $50 per print, and you might be making that on a daily basis for every cartoon you put out. If you're lucky, if you're, you know, you might get 2, 3, 4 newspapers that'll do it. Make an okay little bit of change from it. But it doesn't compare to the syndication agencies where they have contacts with hundreds of newspapers across the country or the world, and they would make those deals with you. Now these agencies, they would sell the printing rights to these newspapers for about $14 per print. Out of that, you get 50%. Now, when I started doing that, I mean, that used to be like super high to me. It's like, why would I give them 50% of what I'm making from the sale of this when I can be making 100%? Well, for one, if you were doing it on your own, you probably wouldn't be making that much money. You'd be selling it to 1, 2, 3, 4 newspapers, you know, because you'd be having to do all this legwork yourself. Through the syndication agency, they're going to pay you $7 per print. They're selling it for $14, but they're selling it to 1, 2, 300 newspapers on a daily basis. So just pure quantity alone, you're making a hell of a lot more money. So really, guys, if you're complaining about the high commissions and stuff that they keep for themselves through their sales of that, you're also thinking wrong. You know, you are making a lot more money than you would be making yourself. And if you're a prolific artist like Gary Pye, I mean, this guy just puts out content after content. I don't know how he does it, but if you're serious about this, there's nothing stopping you from, you know, setting up 4 hours a day, 8 hours a day to just producing clothing items, characters, props, scenes, uploading them to the Reallusion marketplace and making them available to other people who want to create content. That's how you make money. That little niche industry is there for you, and the only thing that's stopping you from doing it is your time and availability, maybe your skill sets. I don't know. Let's look at some more comments from the thing here. Let's see. Let's close that window. Let's close that one. I want to close some of these to make the stream a little bit more efficient. Patty over at the at the Crazy Talk Animators group also left a comment related to this topic. Says, you have a large enough demographic there. Use CTS in addition to any other skill. I highly recommend learning After Effects as it blends nicely into motion graphics with animations. You will have a good skill set. Good luck. You know, that's not, it's not different from what pretty much a general consensus is. You know, it's a tool. And you can't think of yourself as a CTA animator. You know, you got to think of yourself as an animator. When I started out back in like 1999, the days of Flash 3. Not a lot of people were using Flash for producing animation. I mean, Flash itself was developed as a sort of alternative to the GIF file format, low file sizes, a lot of image content, sound, interactivity in file sizes that were much smaller than the average GIF file. It's not as relevant now that everybody has pretty much access to broadband, but that's pretty much how we started out. And even back in those days, Flash was definitely not taken as a serious tool for animation itself. Okay, there was a very small handful of people, including myself, that were producing actual cartoon animation with Flash. We were exploiting it for that purpose. Joe Cartoon, Camp Chaos, I believe Newgrounds popped up around that time period, and you know, and that kind of allowed people to start, you know, doing more with cartoon animation with Flash, and that kind of stinted my own growth as an animator for a while, because I was using Flash. I started migrating more towards Flash for my production work, and it got to a point where people weren't hiring me anymore. I would go up to them and say, you know, and I would tell them, you know, this is what I can do, this is what I do, da 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 da, and then I would mention Flash, and then the first thing that would come up was like, oh, well, we don't need a Flash animator, and then of course I would be like, oh man, I'm not a Flash animator, I'm an animator. So, so don't fall into that, man. Don't fall into that, because you can't just focus on that one piece of software. You know, it's one thing to be a software operator, you know, to operate a specific software, and even if that's all you want to do, you still want to have a tool set. You want to be able to operate Adobe Photoshop, After Effects, Premiere. You want to be able to have the software operation skills that will allow you to produce this stuff. But primarily, you want to have the animation skill sets, because that's how you, if you want to work for a studio, if you want to work for a company that's doing this stuff, they're not gonna hire you just for the purpose of, you know, moving buttons around inside of CTA. Anybody can do that. Quite frankly, I think a lot of the Reallusion marketing and the way that they sell the product is a little bit off. It's not misleading. I mean, it's just a way of naming their products. But you know, they have the standard version, which allows you to animate anything you put in there. You have the standard version, which allows you to do your own characters via drag and drop, you know, the sprite replacement method, and you can use some of the 3D functions, I believe. I think I might be wrong. But then you have the pipeline version, which you have access to everything, especially the ability to create characters. Now, as a professional, from a professional standpoint, I consider the standard version to be the professional animation version, because as a professional, what I would do as a studio, I would just buy one copy of the Crazy Talk Animator pipeline version, which would allow the production of original characters, and I would give my animators the standard version, because that's all they need in order to animate. They don't need to be producing stuff. So all they need is the standard version to be able to create the animation stuff. When we were working on the Batman Missions series, there were only 2 people on the team, including myself, that were familiar with Crazy Talk. That allowed us to create the characters that we needed to do and train everybody else. And quite frankly, you know, once they brought in everybody else, you know, these were people who already had the animation skill sets. Using a tool that was built for the average consumer, within a matter of hours, they were animating, and they were animating on a professional level. So CTA alone, you know, don't expect to get a job anywhere just with that. There might be something out there. If a company is smart enough, they're definitely going to add this to their production workflow, their pipeline. But they're not going to focus just on that. And it's very rare that they're going to be going out there and hiring just Crazy Talk Animator users. They're going to want full-on animators that can have a multiple skill sets. Here's a Spanish one. CTA es destinado a usuarios que la gente quieren usar como pasatiempo o para ser usuarios por YouTubers. He's basically saying that CTA is basically built for users who basically just want to use it to pass the time and make YouTube videos, quick YouTube videos. He's not wrong, but there's more to that. It is primarily for that purpose, okay? It allows for that. But any professional animator, any smart professional animator is going to want to use this as part of their professional tool set. And again, but that's on the animator's side. That's up to you to bring it to your tool set. He also says, pero si quieres tomarte en serio la animación, es mejor ir directamente por Mojo o Toon Boom. Eso decían en los cursos de 2D Animation 101 que hace 2 años atrás. En lo personal tienen razón. He is absolutely wrong on that, okay? Basically what he says is, but if you want to be taken seriously in animation, it's better to go straight for Mojo or Toon Boom. That's what they said in the courses from 2D Animation 101 2 years back. And personally, I think they have a point. That's what he said. He is wrong, okay? That is still going back to the whole mindset that the software is what makes the product. The software is what makes the animator. He's basically going along with what these online animation courses suggest. Other animators who have the wrong impression that just because you have a specific software that you're going to be better at something. Chew TV says LOL. I'm not sure what you're laughing at, but yeah, okay. Right on, brother. If somebody else is suggesting that, okay, if you want to be taken seriously as an animator, go for Toon Boom because it's more professional, that's wrong, man. Pound for pound, Toon Boom is not as advanced as Crazy Talk. Toon Boom has that same stupid 2D camera system that Crazy Talk has. It's ridiculous. It's like 100-year-old technology. Disney developed that multi-plane camera system about 100 years ago, and these two pieces of software, Crazy Talk Animator and Toon Boom, still relying on that as a animation tool. I keep doing this air quotes, but I can't stop doing it because it's ridiculous to me. It's not a 3D camera system. It's 100 years later, and these companies want us to think that the product is more professional because they added something that's more traditional. The software itself is not what's going to make you a professional. It's you that's going to make you a professional. Learn animation. You know, learn traditional animation, learn modern animation, learn to rotoscope. You can film yourself doing stuff. Bring the video into Crazy Talk, bring it into Photoshop, bring it into any other product, Flash, trace over the motion with your own original artwork. You can create really great animation. Even that's 100-year-old technology. You know, Disney was doing that with Snow White. I don't know how long ago, where they would film the actors and they would just manually trace over the film. They would project it on their light tables and they would just kind of trace over that with their own original characters. So that is old old school stuff as well. But you can do that. You don't have to really like know how to draw that well, or you don't have to be like a great animator. You don't have to think about this whole like the notion of the 12 principles of animation. That's a bunch of bullshit, too. The principles of animation is kind of like a template. It's a guide that'll help you create decent animation, but it's not a law. You don't have to animate using that. Japanese animation rarely uses Disney's 12 principles of animation. A lot of feature films rarely use it. It's more about the performance. So you can stick a video camera, record yourself, trace over it. You can create really great quality animation with it. So that's not even a thing, that I personally focus on. But I do agree, with learning the like various foundations of animations, learn timing, learn performance, study acting. That's what's going to make you a better animator. And when you're working in a professional environment, you're not always going to be wearing all the hats at once like you do when you're working by yourself. When you're working by yourself, yeah, you have to know After Effects, you have to know how to edit, you have to know how to combine different tools, composite. When you're working for a studio, generally you have one or two, maybe three different tasks, that you combine. But in general, they have you focus on just one thing. Even in traditional animation, when I worked for Disney and Warner Brothers, in general, they usually only had animators work on one character at a time. So whether I was working on, some series, and of course the series had interactions or whatever, I was only focusing on one character. That was my character. That was me in there. And they do that because they want you to learn how to draw that character from every angle and draw him consistently in every single time, over and over a period of months sometimes. And and that helps, because if you're dividing your work between multiple characters, then you're not really focusing on that one character. It doesn't allow you to maintain that consistency. If you're switching from Superman interacting with Lex Luthor, and you're drawing both of those guys, some guys can do it, but you're drawing both of those guys, then you have to divide up your abilities, your artistic abilities between those two characters. Whereas if you're just focusing on the performance of that one character, you're only having to draw Batman, or you're only having to draw Superman, or whatever. You put all your effort in learning that one character that you can move and rotate in any angle. So the same thing with this. Even if you land a job working with Crazy Talk Animator, you're going to be working with just that one thing. With Crazy Talk Animator, most likely you will be working with more characters at once, because you'll be working in little pieces at a time. But you won't be doing the After Effects stuff. You won't be doing the Photoshop stuff. You might not be doing the rigging stuff. You might just be animating. So a professional animation company might just give you a copy of Crazy Talk Animator Standard, because that's all you need. Let's see here. What else can we cover? So yeah, making money from this. If you are a freelancer, then you gotta look into freelancing. I make a good deal of my personal income from developing original characters for people, and these are a lot of the times just average people who want to produce their own films, or they might be agencies looking to produce their own films, but they don't need animators. They don't have the people that can draw or rig up the advanced G2 characters, but they'll hire me to produce those characters for them. And once they have them, they give them to their staff to drag and drop and produce their content, or they do it themselves. So it's in a way, it's a little bit limited in what you can do right now. Crazy Talk Animator is in fact not taken very seriously. by the animation industry as a whole, simply because of the way the business model that it was born under. It was developed for the average consumer. The company behind it makes the majority of their money from the sales of the content, the props, the assets, the scenes, the characters. So, you know, they're going to make their money from that. And they do have the distribution in place to get your content out there. So they have sold the product to thousands and thousands of customers. So they have a lot, thousands and thousands of customers eagerly awaiting new content. So if you have the time to spend several hours a day or a week or whatever just producing content, you can make money from that, man. Look at Gary Pye. I mean, I admire the hell out of that guy. He just produces stuff and he can do it. I wish I had that amount of time and energy. I get burnt out quick. I can't work on one thing and stay focused. That's just me as on a personal level. I would love to be able to do stuff like that. You can make your own films. I mean, like you can go the standard filmmaking route, you know, you can make, you know, SpongeBob SquarePants. It started out as a 30-minute short film, you know, a little YouTube clip that people would pass around. You know, that was used as their pilot little pitch, you know, for a development deal. That's just the traditional filmmaker route where you can, you know, turn your creative stuff, what's in you, to push it and maybe try to get a development deal out of it. It's easy enough. The software is easy enough that you can actually pull it off. Does anybody have any questions? I see that there's 7 people connected at this time. Something that I might not have touched on. These are basically my thoughts on the subject. I mean, it's very rare that a company is going to Jude, save the spaceman, loving your bits. Thank you, man. I appreciate your comments, and hopefully, you know, you'll stick around and you'll continue to watch the videos and support the videos. Appreciate the comment, man. Yeah, making a living from CTA directly, very unlikely. It's a huge industry with a lot of competition, and it's gotten to the point where your competition, if you're just starting out, your competition is not the professionals out there. Your competition is the neighbor's kid. It's the cheerleader who wants to make a video for homecoming. You know, you can produce explainer videos. I've seen a lot of them. You know, I've seen a lot of them, and I'm kind of disappointed that there's not a lot more effort put into them, because there could be a lot of great work being done with that. The way that I see them done generally is just somebody is dragging and dropping prefabricated generic content, and I'm a little guilty of that myself, but to be fair, I try to be as original as possible whenever possible. The characters that I sell are in fact being sold to the average consumer as well, you know, to the guys who can't take the time to rig up their own characters. But I do put a little bit more effort in making my characters compatible, so that by mixing and matching parts, you can in fact come up with your own configuration that you might even end up copywriting, because nobody else is going to come up with that same configuration of body parts that you could easily pass off as your own character ultimately. How much can you expect to make for working out a G2 character for some individual when you can sell it yourself? That's a really good question, Raymond. The G2 character creation process, once you get the hang of it, is really easy, okay? It's not a Crazy Talk Animator thing, it's more of a Flash thing, okay? From the software operation side, you just have to learn how to use Flash or Adobe Animate. And if you're doing it the way that they kind of teach you how to do it in the manual, the way that they explain it, they give you the whole white paper so that you know how it's built. I mean, you're expected to know how to use Flash in order to get it done, or at least put in the hours to learn it. it can be a time-consuming process. You creating 10 angles, a fully rigged character. For me, it takes me anywhere from, I would say, 16 to 34 man hours of production work to create a full G2 character. Depending on the complexity, it could take less or it could take more. Something like the Buddy's World characters, who are more simplified, probably takes about 12 hours or less. Something like Kevin, if you've been to toontitan.com, you look at my Kevin character, he's more of a Disney-esque character. He has a fully articulate jaw. He's not just, his mouth doesn't just move inside of his face. I mean, his whole jaw moves with the speech, and he has fuller range of motion. So that took a little bit more time. It's like full render style compatible. So something like that would probably take a little bit more than a week. You gotta think, when you're pricing something in man hours, compare it against other jobs. If something is going to take me, let's say if something's going to take me 40 hours of work to produce, and I'm only going to make $300 off of it, I'm not going to do it, because I would much rather be working at McDonald's at minimum wage, because I know the job is going to be easier. And even at minimum wage, I'm going to be making more money for that 40 hours worth of work. So, so those are the kind of things that you have to think about. When the tools themselves become available, I actually developed my own tool. It's not a sales pitch, but without this tool, making this type of work would probably not be convenient for myself. Puppet Producer is a plugin that I developed for Flash that significantly reduces the amount of time spent on the rigging process. Okay, so once you have your artwork in place, you use that plugin to just click, rig it up, and you're done. So the technical side of it, that equation is done. Any amount of work that is really going to be taking you to do for that character is going to be on the creative side. How long is it going to take you to draw that stuff and piece it together? So the technical stuff is out of the picture. So that allows me to produce a character in about 30 hours or less, anywhere between 16 and 34 hours, I would say. I usually charge, right now, my going rate, yes, for right now, for me, the amount is related to using Puppet Producer, because without it, it would take me about 10 hours worth of work. I've timed it. I've experimented with it. I have videos. If you look at my older videos when Crazy Talk Animator 2 came out, I was literally taking like 10, I mean, you can see like 10-hour long videos in there, just to create one angle. And you have to, like, you know, manually name the body parts and keep track of everything. It's the only reason anybody would put themselves through that pain is if they're doing it for their own. If they have the passion to build their own short film and they want to make sure they're absolutely original about it, the characters that they do. So anybody who's making original G2 characters, they're usually doing them because it's for their own personal usage, and that's what they're going to get the value from that, because it's a fully copyrighted character that they're going to be using for their own purposes. That's where the value is, and they're going to take the time to do that. It's for themselves, or they can just pay somebody like myself to build it for them. They can design it, I'll build it for them, they go back and they animate it. So my going rate right now, and it's fluctuated depending on, you know, the season or the year, my workload. Right now I'm charging about, I think I'm charging $750 for one G2 character, original G2 character designed from the ground up. If they come to me with the character already designed, then it takes several hours and several days going back and forth coming up with a good design out of the equation. So I generally knock off a few $100 off of that. Yeah, I usually charge about 700, 650, 700, 750 for a fully rigged G2 character with the render style, with all the mouth sprites, with all the angles, everything that the animator is going to need in order to, you know, successfully animate that character. And if I can produce that character within 1 week's time or less, I feel justified in the amount of time I put into that. Okay, so 40 hours worth of work, I would say for $750, I think it's reasonable. And without Puppet Producer, I don't think I would be able to work that fast. So, and sometimes I work really, I mean, when I'm focused and I can dedicate that kind of time, I'll say I'm gonna work 10 days today, 10 days tomorrow. I might actually have the character done within those 2 days. And then, speak with the client, make any small changes, and spend another 10 hours fixing that. So I think for me, I think 700-ish is a generally good going rate for what I can produce, or for what I feel justified is a good price for my time. If it takes me more than a week to produce a character, then I consider it a loss. So if it's like a really crazy character that's going to take me a long time, I generally talk it out with the client. I try to negotiate a better rate on that. If the client comes to me with with a series of characters, and I can see that these 3 characters pretty much have the same body structure, then I might even do $750 for the first character, because that's what's gonna take the heaviest workload. I'm gonna be producing the original template for the first character, and the second, third, fourth, as long as they share the same body structure, I can use that same template, modify it, charge them $300-400 for that. I'm basically redrawing over the same template that I already built for the first character, so it saves them money on the long run. Later on, they want to make additional characters. If they're based on the same template, then it's perfectly fine, because building a character off of an established template, all you're doing is drawing over already set up sprites. Everything's already rigged, everything's already established, everything's already been calculated. You can probably do it for $200, $300-400, depending on the complexity. So the customer stands to save more money if they order more characters off of the same body framework. You know what I mean? So these are things that you just gotta think for yourself if you're basically putting yourself out for hire as far as a character designer, character developer. There's plenty of money to be made. I have a pretty good backlog myself that I have to fulfill. Right now I have 3 characters backlogged, and in general, new customers kind of have to wait in line, because I generally tell them, hey, my availability, I'm probably not gonna be able to get to this character till August or whatever. And there's been moments where I had like a couple months worth of work from characters that have been pre-ordered, and in general, I never see those characters again. I give the characters to the client, they take it, they animate it. I mean, once they animate it, the tool, like, again, is so accessible that they animate it themselves. They don't need me anymore. When you're selling them for the marketplace, that's a different story. There's 2 things that go with that. For some clients, because of the general nature of the product, Crazy Talk Animator, it's designed for the hobbyists, the amateur animators, the marketers, people who are going to be animating themselves without necessarily having the drawing or the animation skills. You can't expect them to have the budget to hire you to create a $750 character. I might make a deal with them. I'll say, hey, if I like the character, if I like the concept of what they're coming with, I might make some money off of that character in the long run. I might make my money back. So I'll negotiate it with them. I'll say, hey, I'll make your character per your specs, and I'll charge you $400 for it. You'll get it super cheap. You'll get the character that you want, exactly how you want it, and you only need to pay me $300-400 for it. But it's a non-exclusive rights license. The meaning, you get full rights to the character to use any way you want because you hired me to produce it. It's your character for your usage, but ultimately I own the copyrights to that character. I retain the copyrights, which allows me to either sell it, resell it as is, or make further adjustments to it and put it out at the Reallusion Marketplace for $10 a pop, which after about a year, I probably made more than the amount of money that I lost on it, you know, because 100 people paying you $10, that's $1,000, I think, if my math is correct. So you sell it for less, but in the long run, you end up making more money from it. So you can afford to give that client a very cheap original character. You can tell them, hey, I'm not going to use it for anything for the next 3-6 months, but after 6 months, I'm going to put it at the Reallusion Marketplace and I'm going to start selling it for $10 a pop, and other people are going to have access to that. No problem, man. So the other thing is, if you're making characters for use at the Reallusion Marketplace, I mean, the complexity level is the same. The complexity level is going to be the same. You can power through it, spend 2 weeks working on a great solid character that people are going to buy, sell it cheap. In the long run, people are going to be buying it. You can sell it for $5-10 a pop, but the internet is big. Reallusion has already created a really good marketplace where they're going to be promoting your content. They're going to be selling your content for you. They're going to be making it available to all of their customers. And even if they do take 50% of whatever the sale is, you decide to sell it for $10, you only make $5 every time it sells. There's nothing stopping you from selling it for $20. If the character is good enough, people are still going to buy it. Or it doesn't really matter. Even if you're only making $5 a pop per sale, you're going to be selling multiple copies of this to all of their customers, you know. So you have the potential to make a lot more than you would by selling it directly. There's a few animators, a few developers like myself, Toons Unlimited, Gary Pie, WTH Animation, Cartoon Solutions, who have kind of branched out and made our own websites where we sell our stuff outside of the Reallusion Marketplace. That's not something that I recommend for people who are just starting out, because you also have to develop a reputation. You have to establish yourself as some kind of authority in the field. And I think people like Janelle over at Toons Unlimited, she kind of has established that, you know, that reputation. She produces a lot of great tutorials, a lot of great content, a lot of great product, and people like her product. And so she can, and she's been doing it for a while, so she can afford to kind of branch out, create her own website and sell directly, make a little bit more off the back end. You know, she can still afford to sell cheap, but she's making 100% of the profits on that without necessarily limiting herself, because just like her and myself, we're still selling our stuff through the Reallusion Marketplace. It's just another venue. You know, the customer base is the same. Yeah, I agree. There are too few G2 character producers out on the marketplace, and that also has something to do with the nature of the program. When Crazy Talk Animator came out, I mean, personally, I thought it was going to be a game changer. I was well aware of Crazy Talk Animator out there. I used to run a website called flashfilmmaker.com for years. It was it was a very big, well-known industry standard website where people who wanted to learn how to create cartoons with Flash, you know, for filmmaking purposes, for cartoon making purposes, they would come in there, they would read my articles. That's the website that led to me writing my first book. What's my book called? Flash Animation and Cartooning, a Creative Guide. It's out of print now. You can get it for like $4 off of Amazon. It's really great because I didn't necessarily focus just on Flash. You can still learn stuff from that, from character design, script writing, sound editing, putting the production together. So even if you're not just doing Flash and you got $4 to spare, just buy it. It's out of print. You can get a used copy for like $4 off of Amazon. It's a really good book. I highly recommend it. But it led to that, you know? And what I was getting at is that having that website had already kind of put myself out there as a sort of authority in the field. And I used to do a lot of reviews and stuff, and companies would send me their products to review on my site. You know, when Moho became uh, Anime Studio, they sent me a free copy to review and look at and study and stuff. When Crazy Talk Animator came out, they sent me a free copy to evaluate. I loved it. I fell in love with it. I did not find an opportunity at any point to use it on a professional level, but I could see that this product, this software, had something in it. You know, the ability to easily rig up a two-dimensional character, manipulate them like a puppet, have them move around and talk automatically. That was big. I used it in order to get a couple of jobs, you know. Hey, yeah, I can produce animation really fast. Let me drop something in here. Send me a picture of your of your actor or whatever, your character. I would rig up a G1 character within 30 minutes, 30 minutes to an hour. I would send them back a sample animation, and they would be like, "What? You were able to animate this fast?" You know, like, yeah, you know, we can pull it off. When I would get the job, of course, the software itself had too many limitations, so I would end up doing the work with Flash or with After Effects, but it did help me get work. Um, but I saw that, you know, they gave me that copy of the product. I saw it as, okay, these guys are going to go somewhere with this. And then Crazy Talk Animator 2 came out. They did not give me a free copy of that. I bought it myself, and I went in there, I purchased it right away. I saw the G2 characters. I'm like, this is going to be a game changer. I mean, from a professional standpoint, this is it. You know, this is going to compete against Toon Boom. This is going to compete against Moho. It's going to compete against Flash. And personally, I think it still does when it comes to bipedal characters. But they kind of shot themselves in the foot. They put together this super sleek feature. It's a professional grade feature. You know, animators, we have always understood that animation is not easy. It's a time-consuming task. We expect animation to be difficult, and we're still here. So to most professionals who adopted CTA, we were willing to put in the work to produce original G2 characters. That was not a big deal. But the majority, the user base, the target user base for the product is the average consumer. It was too difficult for them to do. You know, the average consumer cannot make their own G2 character. They found it to be too difficult. And in response to that, they ended up coming up with the concept of G3 characters. And quite frankly, it's kind of an illusion. It's kind of an illusion. It's kind of like a little mask, because for one, it's not easier. It's easier because you only have to build one angle. Okay? It's easier because as an average consumer, you really only have to focus on making one angle at a time. That's all you need. And you perceive it as easier. But if you were really creating a G2 character, or if you were really creating a 10 angle G3 character, it would be probably more difficult, because even for me, creating a one angle G3 character is a lot more difficult than creating a one angle G2 character. And that's even without the puppet producer. So, but, you know, you take it as is. You have, you know, a lot more people use Photoshop than they do Flash. I don't think the usage of Photoshop over Flash has any real bearing, because they're both made by the same company and it's all sold on a subscription model. So if you're paying your $40 a month to have Photoshop, then you also have Flash. It's not a one or the other type of situation, because you have both regardless. You know, you have access to both. So that's not even an issue to be like weighing against each other. It was really more to please the majority of their user base, the G3 characters, and animating them is a lot more difficult. You want to produce original animation, you have to animate them all by hand. Yeah, you can buy the pre-rigged animated motions, which are very limited, drag and drop them into your G3 characters. But man, you're limited. If you want to create original stuff, you don't have a puppeteering feature like you do with the G2 characters. You don't have the ability to go to like all of these hundreds of websites that offer free motion capture data in VBH format, grab it, drop it in there. And yeah, it's sad that there is not that much of they kind of shot themselves in the foot with that. They kind of pushed it aside, and it's made it even now a little bit more difficult for people to kind of focus on G2 character creation. There's still a lot of us who do it. I mean, Janelle does it. I do it. Ariel, who's in the chat room right now, he does it. He started doing it. He was doing G3 characters. He started working with me recently, and I kind of guided him in the whole G2 character creation process. I don't think he's going back. I mean, I think he's loving it. I don't think he's going back. He sees the difference now. You know, now that he does it himself, he sees how easy it is, and he sees the benefits behind it. And so now we have another guy who's doing them. So once you start doing them, it's kind of hard to go back. But yeah, it's really sad that there's not that many options out there. I wish there were. All right, so let's see what we can talk about to go ahead and end this video, because I think we pretty much covered everything that we need to in terms of making money from Crazy Talk Animator. Okay, so recap. There is not any company out there that I know of that is literally going to be hiring you just for Crazy Talk Animator work. All right, they're going to be hiring you for your animation work. And if you're going to make money from this, it's going to be from you as an animator, from you using it in your toolkit, and from you using it as a freelancer, from you using it to create stuff for sale to other Crazy Talk Animator users, you know, through the Reallusion Marketplace stuff, and from the creation of original content. Making your own films. Forget about working with CTA itself. You know, just making your own content, selling your stuff, getting a development deal. You might not even want to work with Crazy Talk once you actually get that development deal, because you'll have the money to invest in animators who can work with other tools. What do I think of the next CTA 4? I really like what I see. I think they're still kind of screwing us over by not focusing on something that's gonna push the product towards a more professional type usage. It doesn't make much sense to me for a character to have a 3-dimensional head, a 360 head on a 1-dimensional body. If the body can only move in one angle, then the only possible usage that I have for a 360 head is if I'm going to be doing parodies of The Exorcist. I just don't. I like the fluidity that I see with that head. I don't think it's worth the upgrade alone. If G2 characters are going to continue being the same, then, and you primarily focusing on G2 characters, it's probably not going to be worth the upgrade, because ultimately it's still a G3 character, a one single angle character with a better head. I hope that it works similar to the head systems, that the way that it's worked in Crazy Talk Animator 3 and CTA 2, where you can take a head and put it on any other kind of body by kind of like, you know, Frankensteining it. So I'm really hoping that we can hack that system to put that 3D head on the 3D character, the G2 character, and make a more advanced combination that way. I don't know what I can expect from that. I haven't seen anything else that really draws my attention other than the 3D head. Is that the only improvement? I don't know. They have the 2 stages already set up. The first stage, we got to see a good number of teasers. The second phase, we got to see the work in progress 2 videos. We got to see more in depth about that head thing. And the next phase, according to the little timeline, is going to be the release. What else have they done? Have they fixed a lot of the bugs, you know, that were available since Crazy Talk Animator 2? If you go into Flash, you import a sprite from Photoshop into Flash for use in Crazy Talk Animator, and you Control B on it to break it apart so that you can modify a little bit, export it into Crazy Talk, it causes Crazy Talk to crash. That bug was there since Crazy Talk Animator 2. It's there in Crazy Talk Animator 3. Will it still be there in Crazy Talk Animator 4? I don't know, man. I've only seen things related to that head. If that's the only improvement, I'm not sure it's worth the upgrade just yet. Unless, of course, I'm able to get that head and attach it to my things. I still see G2 characters as being the more relevant from a professional standpoint. The more relevant production model, you know. But we'll just have to wait and see. I would like to see a 3D camera system. I'm tired of that 100-year-old camera system, the multiplane thing. Moho was able to do a real 2D camera, a 3D camera, about 5-6 years ago, probably longer than that. You can take that camera, it's in a vector environment, and you can move that camera all around the object. That's a 3D camera system. Okay, being able to go in and out, that's multiplane, that's not 3D. That's 100-year-old technology, and we need to move past that. So I hope that that they allow you to bring that in. Do I know if the current new motions sold on iClone are still usable on Crazy Talk Animator 2s? It is a very sensitive subject for Reallusion. Anyways, not for me. Every time that I talk openly about this, I kind of get some eyebrows raised at me because of the way I talk about it. It's as if when they're working on one thing, they focus on that one thing alone, and they don't take into consideration the other products, okay? One of the biggest selling points for Crazy Talk Animator 2 was the ability to bring in motions from iClone and reuse them inside of Crazy Talk Animator. It worked great. The iMotion files. Then they upgraded, they updated iClone to iClone 6. It stopped working. It was a completely incompatible format. They never fixed it. So yeah, I believe iClone 6 and 6.5 iMotions never worked with Crazy Talk Animator 2. And they never will. They were never made to work. Even after Crazy Talk 3 came out, it still doesn't support iClone 6 motions. So it's a really weird thing, man. iClone 7 motions work with Crazy Talk Animator 3. I think it's the RL motion format, not the iMotion format. That's still the iClone 6 stuff. But if you go back to the iClone 5 stuff, all of that works. As long as it was created for iClone 5, all of the iClone 5 motions should work perfectly fine in Crazy Talk Animator 2, 3, and theoretically in 4. Because I doubt that they're doing any manipulation to the G2 format. So I think that's going to stay the same. If you want to be able to create motions in iClone for use in Crazy Talk Animator 3, then do it in iClone 5 or do it in iClone 7. If you're going to be converting other people's motions, like from Mixamo, you know how they have like thousands of motion capture files there that you can download for free as long as you're a member, or you go to any of these websites where you get the motion capture data, the free BBH files, or you're making your own motion stuff using a motion capture suite. then you have to use 3D Exchange 5 and export to iClone 5 format. That's the only way you're gonna get that iClone format to work with Crazy Talk Animator 2, 3, and 4 most likely. And if you're doing 3D Exchange 7, I think you need the pipeline version of that also, which costs like a bunch of money to be able to export that. Then you need to export to the RL format, which will only be compatible with CTA 3 and most likely with CTA 4, but not CTA 2. So that's kind of how that works. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's stopping them from making their software backwards compatible. Specifically, when that was the biggest marketing gimmick, you know, that wow, you can take motions from iClone, all of these motions that have been done over the years, and bring them into Crazy Talk Animator 3. That was the biggest marketing thing, and now they're not able to use them. Why would they block themselves that way? I don't know. And it really wouldn't be that difficult for them to just kind of fix that, so that, I mean, it's very appropriate marketing thing, you know. It works, it's great. I encourage it, you know, I support it, but they shot themselves in the foot with that too. So all right, guys. So in conclusion, yeah, don't expect to make any money directly from CTA 2 by working for a studio using that. Your competition is your neighbor. There's a very saturated market. The higher the technology, the more accessible and cheaper it becomes to everybody. Same thing in the film industry, you know. You can afford yourself a little $500 camera and film in 4K with, you know, interchangeable lenses and everything, and make really high quality films with it. But so can your neighbor. So that's your competition. It's not, you know, you're gonna have a hard time finding work at a studio working with Crazy Talk Animator. Thank you, Raymond. I appreciate your comment, man. Other than that, if you feel that I missed something or you disagree with some of my statements, leave your comments, you know, below. I'll read them from time to time. I'll make them part of my future videos, and I'll try to come online more often with these type of editorial stuff where I'm just kind of, you know, talking opinion-based stuff. If you enjoyed this type of videos, again, also let me know. Let me know so I can keep on doing more of these. Usually I stick to just like the tutorial-based stuff. If you want to know more tutorials, want me to focus on other things, you know, After Effects, Flash, combining things, production workflow, you know, we're animators. We're not just one-trick ponies. So we're not here to just do crazy talk. That just happens to be what we're focusing on these days. All right, so here it goes. Let's see here. There is the credit sequence. This is where I get to remind you guys, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, hit that subscribe link, share it if you feel that this is informative and other people will benefit from this, or if you're part of an argument with somebody and say, hey, well, Ibis says this, check him out. And if you don't agree with him, go talk shit to him. Other than that, hit the little bell icon. Whenever I go live, you'll be notified, and you can just come join the chat. Yeah, so stick around. Ooh, that's a good catchphrase. Stay tuned. That's gonna be my catchphrase from now on. Stay tuned, guys, because there's gonna be a lot more. See you guys later.